Imagine yourself positioned on the edge of a modest river, presently located in what are known as the Ukrainian plains. It's the autumn of 1362. A Mongol army, direct descendants of warriors who once instilled fear across Europe, stands before you. Behind you is a Lithuanian contingent, a populace most Europeans still regarded as wild pagans. In a matter of hours, a confrontation will ignite, and its outcome is poised to utterly transform the geopolitical map of Eastern Europe for the next 6 centuries. This isn't the famous Battle of Kulikovo, so often celebrated by Russia, nor is it Grunwald, where the Teutonic Knights faced their downfall. This is Blue Waters, a battle largely obscured by history, yet potentially more impactful than those two combined. The critical question remains: why has such a pivotal engagement nearly disappeared from historical records? And precisely what transpired that autumn along the banks of the Syniukha River? Before we delve into the answers, please share your location and the current time. I'm genuinely interested in the diverse time zones from which you're connecting globally. To grasp the profound significance of the Battle of Blue Waters, we must journey back approximately a century. In 1240, when Batu Khan's Mongol forces swept through Eastern Europe like a tempest, their impact extended beyond mere conquest. They established a comprehensive system, an empire. The Golden Horde, known to the Mongols as Ulug Ulus, or the Great State, was more than just a military force. It operated as a sophisticated administrative apparatus. From their capital in Sarai, situated on the Volga River, their authority extended from Siberia to the borders of Hungary. Their system was straightforward but highly effective. The Rus princes, future rulers of areas that would become Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, were compelled to travel to Sarai to obtain a yarlik, a type of patent, granting them the right to govern. They rendered annual tribute and supplied soldiers upon demand. Non-compliance guaranteed a visit from Mongol troops, who would deliver a forceful reminder with fire and steel. However, what makes this particularly fascinating is that the Mongols did not govern directly. They permitted local princes to rule their people, adhere to their own laws, and even maintain their religions. The Golden Horde's interests were narrowly focused on 2 objectives: wealth and power. This represented a remarkably pragmatic form of imperialism. For an entire century, this system functioned flawlessly. Under Khan Ozbeg, 1312 to 1341, the Golden Horde reached its zenith. Trade routes stretching from the Black Sea to Yuan dynasty China prospered, and cities like Sarai evolved into hubs of culture and commerce. The Mongols embraced Islam, yet they maintained a policy of tolerance towards Christianity and other belief systems. Nonetheless, any empire predicated on the individual strength of its leaders faces an inherent vulnerability. The demise of powerful rulers often precipitates instability. In 1359, Khan Berdi Beg was assassinated by Kulpa, one of numerous aspiring rivals, and a period of intense chaos ensued. What followed, termed the Great Troubles by historians, marked one of the most turbulent eras in medieval history. Over 2 decades, more than 25 different Khans asserted legitimate claim to the Golden Horde's throne. During this tumultuous period, the average lifespan of a Khan barely spanned a few months to 2 years. This was not merely a struggle for power, it represented the systemic unraveling of a governing structure. The Golden Horde began to fragment into distinct uluses, or districts, each commanded by its own warlord, each pledging allegiance to a different Khan. By 1362, the precise year of Blue Waters, the Golden Horde was effectively divided into 3 main factions. Kelebeg governed from Sarai, Bulat Timir controlled Volga Bulgaria, and Abdullah held Crimea. Concurrently, Mamai, a formidable general who, lacking direct Genghisid lineage, could not claim the throne himself, orchestrated events from his Crimean power base through puppet Khans. Consider this predicament. The Rus princes found themselves in a quandary, uncertain where to seek their patents or to whom to pay tribute. Sarai or Crimea? A misstep could invite punitive action from a different Mongol army. Some historians propose that the Black Death, the devastating plague that swept across Europe and Asia in the 1340s and 1350s, severely undermined the Golden Horde's economy. Trade routes were disrupted, populations dwindled, and revenues from taxes and tribute plummeted. Yet perhaps more significant was the psychological breakdown. For a century, the Rus principalities had perceived the Golden Horde as invincible. But now, observing the Mongols embroiled in internecine power struggles and lacking clear leadership, a critical question began to formulate in their minds. If they cannot govern themselves, how can they govern us? It was at this crucial juncture that Algirdas, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, recognized an extraordinary opportunity. Algirdas was not a typical medieval ruler. Born around 1296, he was one of 7 sons of Grand Duke Gediminas, the architect of what would become one of Europe's largest states in the 14th century. However, Algirdas's distinction lay not solely in his familial legacy, but in his profound strategic foresight. Upon the demise of his father in 1341, Algirdas and his sibling Kęstutis embarked on an exceptional joint reign. Kęstutis assumed control over the western frontier, perpetually under siege by the Teutonic Knights. Meanwhile, Algirdas directed his attention eastward towards the prosperous Rus principalities languishing under the diminishing influence of the Golden Horde. This power-sharing arrangement proved remarkably effective throughout the medieval period, characterized by an absence of rivalry, conspiracies, and instead a clear division of responsibilities bolstered by mutual trust. Such a setup allowed Algirdas to fully pursue his ambitions. His aspirations transcended mere territorial expansion. Algirdas grasped a more profound vision. He aimed to forge a multi-ethnic, multi-religious state where pagan Lithuanians and Orthodox Rus could coexist harmoniously, where governance stemmed from shared interests rather than oppression. While this might appear idealistic, Algirdas's actual policies provided ample proof. He married Orthodox princesses twice and appointed Rus princes as viceroys in conquered territories, granting them autonomy to govern according to their own laws and customs. He authorized the construction of Orthodox churches in Vilnius, Lithuania's pagan capital, and even elevated Ruthenian, the precursor to modern Ukrainian and Belarusian, to one of the Grand Duchy's official languages. This was a novel approach, far removed from traditional imperialism. Around 1360, Algirdas initiated his most audacious strategy yet, a direct offensive against Golden Horde territories. He began by seizing Chernihiv and Bryansk between 1357 and 1358, northern Rus lands that still paid homage to the Horde. He then advanced further east, capturing the fortress of Korchev near the Don River, deep within Tatar domain. These were exploratory maneuvers, as Algirdas was gauging the Golden Horde's reaction. The response was almost negligible. The Khans were preoccupied with internal conflicts. In a symbolic act around 1360, Algirdas removed Theodore, the last prince of Kiev recognized by the Golden Horde, and installed his own son, Vladimir. Kiev, revered as the mother of Rus cities and the cradle of Slavic civilization, devastated by the Mongols in 1240, now fell under Lithuanian control. The issue, however, was that Kiev technically remained a vassal of the Golden Horde, still obligated to pay tribute. Algirdas's unilateral appointment of his son was a clear affront. Despite its internal turmoil, the Golden Horde could not overlook this defiance. 3 beys, rulers of Podolia, the southwestern region bordering Kiev, mobilized their forces. They represented the interests of Abdallah, one of the Khans competing for power. Thus, the stage was set for the Battle of Blue Waters. In the autumn of either 1362 or 1363, historical accounts differ on the precise year. Algirdas led his army across the Dnieper River, venturing southwest towards Podolia. This was no mere raid, but a meticulously planned campaign. Algirdas's forces comprised not only Lithuanian soldiers, but also Ruthenian units from newly acquired lands like Smolensk, Bryansk, and Kiev. He was making a statement. This was not a foreign invasion, but a liberation. What distinguished the Lithuanian army at this juncture? They were not characterized by the heavy European-style knights. The Lithuanian nobility of that era lacked the wealth for costly heavy armor and war horses. Their primary strength lay in light cavalry, mobile, agile, and proficient in both mounted and dismounted combat. However, they were rapid learners. After nearly a century of conflict with the Teutonic Knights, Lithuanians had refined sophisticated tactics. They mastered terrain utilization, employed feigned retreats to ensnare enemies, and effectively coordinated cavalry and infantry. Crucially, in 1362, they possessed something the Mongols lacked: unified command. The two armies clashed near Lubotitsia, a small settlement on the banks of the Syniukha River. The Mongols referred to it as Yabi, the viceroy's town. The Rus called it Sinivodi, or Blue Waters. The origin of this name remains uncertain. Perhaps it reflected the river's hue or a vanished geographical feature, but it would forever be etched in history. Our sole detailed account of the battle comes from Maciej Strajkowski, a Polish-Lithuanian chronicler writing in 1582, more than 2 centuries after the event. Therefore, caution is warranted. Yet, his description aligns with our understanding of both sides' tactics. Strajkowski claims Algirdas deployed his army in 6 groups forming a crescent, a half-circle arrangement. This diverged from the standard medieval European formation of knights charging head-on. The crescent formation was a strategic choice, designed to counter the classic Mongol tactic of horse archery. Indeed, as the battle commenced, Tatar cavalry swept towards the flanks of the Lithuanian formation, unleashing a continuous barrage of arrows. This was the feared tactic that had terrorized European armies for over a century. Maintain distance, move swiftly, shoot accurately, and avoid close combat unless possessing an overwhelming advantage. However, in this particular engagement, something was different. The arrows had minimal impact. Strachey provides an account, potentially influenced by Algius's prior encounters, or perhaps because his soldiers had superior shields or better protective garments. It's plausible that the crescent formation used by the Tatar cavalry forced them to maintain a distance that diminished the accuracy and force of their arrows. However, a more significant reason might be that the caliber of Tatar cavalry in 1362 was not comparable to what it had been during the eras of Genghis Khan or Batu Khan. The elite warriors may have aged or perished in internal conflicts, and their replacements could have lacked the same level of training. Furthermore, financial constraints might have led to substandard horses and equipment. Regardless, the outcome was unmistakable. The arrow attacks were ineffective. This prompted Algirdas to make a crucial move. Instead of passively enduring the Tatars' persistent harassment, he commanded an advance. The Lithuanians and Ruthenians, equipped with spears and swords, pushed forward. It was a disciplined progression, not a reckless charge, with formations maintained meticulously. The Tatar cavalry, accustomed to foes either holding their ground or pursuing them into traps, found themselves in an unfamiliar situation. They faced a steadily advancing force, compelling them to either engage in close combat or retreat. Then, Kariotes's sons, who were Algardas's cousins, along with units from Nerdukas, launched a crossbow assault on the Tatar flanks. This moment proved pivotal. The crossbow, a weapon specifically developed in Europe to counter Mongol cavalry, boasted a longer range and greater penetrating power than conventional bows. Crucially, it didn't demand years of specialized training for effective use. Attacked from the front by infantry and cavalry, and simultaneously assailed from both sides by crossbows, the Tatar formation began to disintegrate. They couldn't uphold a safe distance or implement their customary mobile tactics. Most critically, they lacked support. In a typical battle involving a unified Golden Horde, reinforcements would have been arriving, a reserve army would have been mobilized, and there would have been coordination from other Ulus. Yet, in 1362, there was nothing. The 3 bays of Podolia were isolated in their fight. The Tatar formation crumbled, and according to Strachkowski, they descended into a disorganized retreat, a military disaster characterized by a loss of order, command, and an every-man-for-himself mentality. Algirdas had secured a decisive victory. Following the battle, Algirdas continued his offensive, pushing directly into Podolia. Chronicles indicate he liberated the region south of Kiev, extending through the steppes behind Ochevo to the Black Sea coast, from Putivo to the mouth of the Don River, a phrase Lithuanian sources use. This essentially meant Algirdas had seized control of the majority of central and southern Ukraine, the most fertile and vital territories the Golden Horde controlled in the west. What makes this even more compelling is his approach to governing these lands. Algirdas did not install Lithuanian governors universally. Instead, he granted Podolia to Caryodottis' sons, recognizing their bravery in battle. He retained numerous local Rus princes in their positions elsewhere, merely requiring them to shift their allegiance from the Horde to Lithuania. Most significantly, he declared an end to the tribute payments to the Tartars. For over a century, every autumn, carts laden with silver, furs, honey, and slaves had journeyed from the Rus principalities to Sarai, a stark symbol of subjugation and the cost of their existence. Now, Algirdas declared it over. The Golden Horde's response was virtually non-existent, as they were engrossed in civil war. Abdullah, the Khan to whom the three Podolian beys owed allegiance, was embroiled in a conflict with Murad at Sarai, while Mama strove to consolidate power in Crimea. None possessed the necessary resources or focus to retaliate against Lithuania. This exemplifies Algirdas's greatest strategic lesson: timing. He refrained from attacking the Golden Horde when they were robust under Ozbeg, instead waiting until they were at their weakest point before striking swiftly and definitively. However, the true impact of Blue Waters transcended mere territorial gains. It was profoundly psychological. The Battle of Blue Waters marked a pivotal moment in Eastern European history in three distinct ways. First, it shattered the enduring myth of Mongol invincibility. For over a century, Europeans had believed that defeating the Mongols in a major pitched battle on open ground was impossible. Prior successes, such as Legnica in 1241, were perceived as mere tactical setbacks, with the Mongols withdrawing for political, not military reasons. Blue Waters, however, was different. This was a confrontation on terrain the Mongols chose, and they suffered a complete defeat. News of this triumph resonated across Eastern Europe. Princes in Moscow and Ryazan began to ponder, if Lithuania could achieve this, why couldn't they? Dmitry Donskoy of Moscow, who would later defeat Mamai at Kulikovo in 1380, was likely directly inspired by Algirdas's victory 18 years prior. Second, it fundamentally altered the balance of power in Eastern Europe. Prior to the Battle of Blue Waters, Lithuania held significance but remained on the periphery. It was a pagan monarchy struggling to survive between the Teutonic Knights to its west and the Golden Horde to its east. However, following Blue Waters, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania emerged as a dominant force in Europe. Its domain extended from the Baltic Sea almost to the Black Sea, spanning from Poland's borders to within 50 miles of Moscow. This development established a new counterbalance to Muscovy, the burgeoning Principality of Moscow. For 2 centuries hence, the rivalry between Lithuania and Moscow to consolidate the various Rus lands would define the region's historical narrative. Despite Moscow's eventual triumph, becoming the bedrock of Russia, Lithuania's prolonged existence as a major power postponed this outcome by centuries. Thirdly, and arguably most crucially, this event paved the way for a different kind of governmental structure. The Grand Duchy of Lithuania, under Algirdas and his successors, transcended the typical national empire. It was a diverse entity characterized by multiple ethnicities, languages, and religions: pagan Lithuanians, Orthodox Rus, Catholic Poles, and Muslim Tatars all coexisted. In 1569, when Lithuania united with Poland to form the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, this inclusive model expanded and endured for nearly 2 centuries. This Commonwealth stood as one of Europe's most tolerant political entities, a crucible for experimenting with concepts like noble rights, religious freedom, and nascent forms of constitutionalism. While not without flaws, it presented an alternative to the absolutism and intolerance prevalent in many other parts of Europe. This evolution began, at least in part, with Algirdas' strategic decision not merely to conquer, but to integrate the territories he gained from the Golden Horde. Yet, despite its profound importance, the Battle of Blue Waters has nearly faded from collective historical memory. Contemporary records are scarce. Rus and Russian chronicles offer only fleeting mentions, and Mongol sources are largely silent. The most comprehensive account is the Tale of Podolia, a narrative integrated into the Lithuanian chronicles approximately 70 years after the actual event, during a period when Lithuania was contesting Polish control over Podolia. Some historians have even questioned the battle's depiction, wondering if it was merely a series of minor skirmishes, later amplified by chroniclers into a major conflict. Nevertheless, most contemporary scholars concur that a significant event transpired in the autumn of 1362 or 1363 near the Syniukha River. The evidence for its significance lies not primarily in written accounts, but in its profound repercussions. The abrupt shift in sovereignty over a vast region, the cessation of tribute payments, and the subsequent construction of Lithuanian castles and fortifications in Podolia. So why was it largely forgotten? The reasons are primarily political. After Lithuania's merger with Poland in 1569, the Polish government had a vested interest in diminishing Lithuanian military achievements to reinforce Polish supremacy within the Union. Later, when the Russian Empire subjugated Poland-Lithuania in the late 18th century, Russian historians were motivated to highlight the Russian victory at Kulikovo, while downplaying the Lithuanian triumph at Blue Waters. During the Soviet era, the narrative became even more complex. As part of the USSR, emphasizing Lithuanian historical accomplishments risked fostering nationalism. Consequently, Blue Waters continued to be marginalized. Only after Lithuania regained independence in 1990 did scholars earnestly begin to research this battle. Conferences were convened in Ukraine in 1997, 1998, and 2012. In 2022, the National Bank of Belarus issued a commemorative coin featuring Grand Duke Algirdas. History, it seems, is being rewritten, or perhaps more accurately, retrieved. So, what insights can we glean from a battle that occurred over 660 years ago? First, timing is paramount. Algirdas did not engage the Golden Horde at their zenith. He exercised patience, observed, and prepared. When the opportune moment arrived and his adversary was at its weakest, he acted decisively. In life, careers, and any undertaking, discerning the right moment to act is as crucial as knowing how to act. Second, unity triumphs over fragmentation. In 1362, the Golden Horde possessed more warriors, greater resources, and a longer military tradition than Lithuania. However, they were fractured, warring among themselves more than against their common foe. Lithuania, though smaller, was unified under clear leadership, and this solidarity proved to be the decisive advantage. Third, nothing is truly insurmountable. For over a century, the Golden Horde appeared to be an unmovable force. Yet every empire, every system, and every power structure ultimately possesses vulnerabilities. A leader's task is to identify these weaknesses, and a challenger's role is to exploit them. Fourth, victory extends beyond mere territorial gain. It encompasses vision. Algirdas did not simply seize lands from the Golden Horde. He forged an alternative model for the functioning of a multi-ethnic state, a model predicated on tolerance, local autonomy, and collaboration rather than oppression. While this model wasn't flawless and eventually collapsed, nonetheless, for over 4 centuries, it demonstrated alternative approaches to organizing authority. Ultimately, history isn't predetermined. Had the 3 noble brothers of Podolia triumphed at Blue Waters in 1362, the trajectory of Eastern European history would have been entirely different. Lithuania might never have risen to become a significant power. Moscow could have unified the Rus lands a century earlier. The innovative model of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth might never have emerged. A single battle, a solitary day, and decisions made by a select few fundamentally altered an entire continent. This encapsulates both the strength and the weight of human agency. On an autumn day in 1362, along the banks of a minor river in Ukraine, two armies were poised against each other. One contingent represented an empire that once instilled fear across the globe. The other embodied a flicker of hope, the hope that the humble could still challenge the mighty, that unity could overcome division, that the future was not yet set in stone. As the sun descended that day, the Golden Horde, the vast empire stretching from China to Hungary, suffered a crucial blow to its influence and standing. They never fully recuperated. Within 2 decades, their fragmentation persisted. Within a century, they had vanished. Lithuania, a minor pagan kingdom that had merely been struggling for survival, ascended to become one of Europe's preeminent powers. The model they established, a multi-ethnic state founded on cooperative principles rather than subjugation, would profoundly shape regional history for centuries. All of this unfolded because a man named Algirdas dared to act when others remained passive. He possessed the foresight not merely to conquer, but to construct something superior. He understood that opportune timing, sound strategy, and a clear purpose held the power to reshape the world. This is the enduring lesson of Blue Waters, not that violence provides solutions, it does not, but that in crucial historical junctures, individual decisions are paramount. Nothing is immutable. Tomorrow doesn't have to mirror yesterday, and occasionally, on the banks of an obscure river, history veers in a new direction. If you found this video engaging, please hit the like button and subscribe for more untold historical narratives that altered the world. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Which historical event do you believe has been unjustly overlooked? In our next broadcast, we will delve into the subsequent events, how Algirdas and Lithuania continued their expansion, confronted Moscow, and ultimately forged a world-changing alliance with Poland. It's a narrative woven with diplomacy, betrayal, and power, as compelling as any cinematic production. Thank you for viewing. See you next time.